Hey guys, before today's episode of the podcast, I want you to check out brandsashka.com/goodies. That's brandsashka.com/goodies. It's where I'm dropping all high value content for you to grow as a creative visionary. Check it out, brandsashka.com/goodies.
You're listening to the Visionary on Fire podcast.
Hey fam, welcome back to this episode of the Visionary on Fire podcast with Sashka. Today is all about visionaries who are being the change they want to see and be in the world. It's time to discover about you. Get comfy and let's go rock and roll.
All right, visionaries. Welcome back to this week's Visionary on Fire podcast with your host, Sashka, where I invite inspiring and visionary guests from around the world to share their thought leadership on their form of entrepreneurship, their philosophy, and using their learnings from this episode for you to implement today to be the change that you want to see and be in the world. Now, being a brand of business that stands out from every other business, well, that can be a bit of a train smash sometimes, don't you think? There are three core areas that I know for a fact that hold visionaries back to achieving their potential. Uno, their belief in themselves, because they're not really sure what to believe in and what the purpose of all of it is. Due, focusing on the things that aren't important now to get you to where you need to be. Tres, your healing of your body, soul, and mind. There's a lot of mindset, trauma, and shadow work that needs some attention, loving attention. And I love, did I say love? Entrepreneurs who serve us to help us with the latter. Your healing of your mind, body, and soul, especially when they keep it super simple, because let's be real, the more you dig, the more you'll find. So oftentimes, just to cope with what's going on, it's a breath of fresh air meeting someone like our next guest. She focuses on not just giving you advice on the tools to cope with your challenges, but eliminate them completely. Our next guest works solely with high achievers, and she knows that millions of high achievers all over the world struggle with the same thing: self-sabotage, struggling against resistance, and getting stuck. Despite her reading books, taking courses, reading more books, hiring coaches, reading more books, and going to therapy for decades, oftentimes things just don't change the way that is needed for the potential to expand. But this change didn't just appear for our next guest. She always had a deep, persistent sense that she was a fraud. Oh, hell, who hasn't felt like that? Inadequate and unsuccessful, like a really deep sense of these things. She always felt like things were never quite right, that she'd never achieved enough, and that she was never really okay. These thoughts and feelings negatively impacted and sometimes even completely sabotaged everything she did, from how she communicated with her significant other, to how she handled projects with clients, to how she felt when she woke up each and every morning. There were more days than she'd like to admit where she simply didn't want to get out of bed. I know that. What's worse, none of her mind's faulty programming was logical, because she knew logically that she was good enough, that she was smart. She knew logically what she needed to do to get better results for her life. She knew logically that she was more than capable of solving her challenges. So why did she feel so damn stuck? And as beautiful as the universe works, our next guest received what she calls the really, really dark period of her life. Out of nowhere, she was hit with chronic pain that completely sidelined her for nearly 2.5 years. 2.5 years, people. She couldn't move without pain. She couldn't exercise, bike, snowboard, work out, recreate. And for a constantly active outdoors person who literally moved to the mountains so that she could be active outside, on a daily basis, this only intensified the suffering. She went to hundreds of appointments, saw what felt like every doctor, practitioner, therapist, and specialist in the state. She spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to figure out why she was now miserable in her body, in addition to her mind. No one helped. In fact, most practitioners only made her pain, anxiety worse. She'll never forget the day everything changed. She was sitting on a couch with a therapist. She was looking piercingly into her eyes. And she said, "You are miserable and in pain because you don't believe you're okay or good enough. You are miserable and in pain because you base your self-worth completely on your latest achievements." "Okay," she answered. "I can see that. So let's fix it. How do we make my mind believe I'm good enough? Let's do it." She looked at me and said, "It'll take lots of time and patience and faith. We'll begin to dive into this in our many sessions ahead over the upcoming months, and we'll really explore what it would mean to be okay." And that was the moment everything changed. Because our next guest knew, I don't want to spend more months or years exploring and on faith and rehashing and what she'd already covered. She didn't want to think and explore being okay. She wanted a shift, and she wanted it right then. She wasn't going to wait any longer. She needed to figure out how to change something in her mind that was deeply programmed, and if she and all the others couldn't help her do it, she'd figure it out on her own. She walked out that door that day knowing she'd never go back. That was the moment she knew that if she really wanted to move forward with the rest of her life, she needed to stop looking for the answers in standard modalities that didn't do anything for her. So she set out and did exactly that. And here she is with us today, visionaries, high achievers who need that boost. So let's give our guest a warm welcome. Put your hands together for the one and only Erin Pheil. Hello, Erin.
Hello there.
Was it nice hearing your story all over again?
I have never heard anybody else tell my story. It was really actually quite cool. I was sitting here kind of refeeling it as you were going through it. I've told it so many times, but I've never heard it repeated back to me. It was actually quite an experience.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's amazing. And it's for the high achievers that have read all the books, done all the courses, gone through everything. We know, and it's like, I know that if you haven't dealt with this, the universe is going to hit you with something metaphysical. And then when you hit the metaphysical, it's like, how much more do I need to dig right now? And what I love about what you do is that it's something very simple in order to eliminate very quickly, in order to move forward very quickly as well.
Yes.
Now, I want to move into 3 sections that we're going to be working on today, starting with entrepreneurship. You ran an award-winning and nationally ranked web agency for 16 years. So you have a lot of experience in business. Before you started MindFix, which is your business, after discovering the magic formula to getting out of one's own way, after following this 2.5, 3-year battle with pain and depression, how did you create the magic formula? Did it just fall in your lap? Was it this epiphany? What made you believe that this was the magic formula? And how did you structure it into a formula?
So to answer the question, did it fall in my lap? The answer is, oh, hell no. I wish it would have fallen in my lap. That would have been quite lovely. But no, it was quite the opposite. I actually went about kind of my standard typical way of trying to figure things out when prior to going through the pain period, I was out there taking these courses and reading books on like, what should I do next with my life? And what's my unique ability? And how can I be of better service? Because all I'd ever known was running an agency for 16 years. I didn't know what else to do. I did it straight out of graduate school. So I'm sitting here going, I know I need to do something else, but I have no idea how or what.
Wow.
So what ended up happening is I was going through this pain period with all the pain and the depression and the anxiety, and my life kind of came to this complete stop other than going to all of the doctors. I started to go and talk to, I had a couple different therapists that I went to because my mental health was suffering alongside my physical health. And when actually one particular kind of counselor or a coach that I saw who brought up the possibility that, you know what, you keep going to see these doctors every day. If you took care of what was going on up here, it's quite possible that everything else would follow and you could actually begin your healing process. There's a reason why you've been running around and seen hundreds of doctors for 2 years and nothing is changing. And it's because you keep focusing on your body. You haven't really focused much on your mind. And if you could change your mental lens and how you see the world, it's quite possible everything else could change, because your lens is so dirty. How you perceive the world is just so skewed. And it was that conversation in particular that I remember that had me kind of flip the switch of, oh, I've been going down this path of doctor, somebody's going to help me, to what if I actually changed how I experienced my life on a daily basis? Perhaps other people would seem different. Perhaps my pain would seem different. Perhaps I would make different decisions. And so since this path had not worked for so long, I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. But after talking to a handful of people and starting to go down this path and asking other people, how do I change my mind? And go read this book, go take this mindset course. And I was starting to experience the same thing where nothing seemed to be working. I finally said, I'm going to figure this out myself. I'm going to figure out how I can actually change these thought patterns and these belief structures and all of this old programming that I picked up that I consciously know doesn't serve me. But like in here, I'm pointing to like my heart right now, like in here, it still feels kind of real. So it was one discussion with one woman at one point that kind of pointed me off in a different direction. And it did take me, you asked me how I kind of came about putting this all together. It took me probably another year of trying to work with people, studying with people, taking parts and pieces of different modalities, and becoming my own science experiment where I was trying different things on me. Because I figured I'm not just going to read a book and assume it works. I'm going to really become my own test subject. So as I combined different modalities and started to figure out how I could actually change and eliminate a lot of the stuff that was holding me back, things started to work. I started to feel lighter. My depression started to lift. My anxiety started to decrease. My physical pain in my body started to go away. So while the agency is still being built, I would also work with I took on like friends, and some of my agency clients wanted to become clients. They heard what I was doing as we would talk and discuss like over coffee. And it was working so effectively and so quickly that suddenly, while I was still running the agency, I had a line of people out the door who wanted to work with me and kind of clean off their mental lenses and eliminate their kind of head trash and the stuff that was causing them to feel stuck and get in their own way. So it evolved really organically that it started to work so well on myself that other people noticed and started asking for help. And before I knew it, suddenly I actually running 2 businesses at once.
Oh my God. And how was that on the mental health though?
It was really interesting. I kept thinking, it hadn't hit me. I might be a little bit dense. It hadn't hit me that I had literally found my life's calling that I had been looking for aggressively, like with a microscope going, where is it? Where is it? And it had kind of in a way fallen in my lap after all of this pain and all of this struggle. And I didn't notice it. So what was interesting is I hadn't really accepted that I was no longer in love with running the agency and that it was actually part of what was pulling me down. I kept moving forward with it because I thought I had to. And so as I started to do this other work, I increased my workload each week, but I became happier and lighter and I had more and more energy until I finally realized, like, wait, why am I holding on to this other horse? Like I can let it go. I don't need this.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So when you made the switch or the realization and then the switch, how did you begin to believe in the year that you were working on your formula, in the formula and in yourself, that this was like, okay, this is something?
Well, there were a lot of explosions along the way because it definitely did not all work at once. What I found was these pieces where I would experience something and go, that helped me a little bit, but it was more of an intuition thing. It feels like this is part of a bigger puzzle. this needs another piece to it. So I'd go out and I'd search and I'd say, I need to be able to experience what it's like to let go of an old belief, but I also need to make sure that I'm feeling calm in my body at the same time. And then I'm noticing that even as I do this work, I still have some leftover emotions. So I need to find something that can handle those. So I kept kind of feeling into the parts, and I'm quite right-brained, ultra-logical, but I kept moving forward feeling like there's something missing here. And I'd go out and search and look for different parts. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And do you still feel that you're building on top of your formula?
We're always refining. We have something that is exceptionally effective. We update our success rate every quarter, and we just posted our success rate for Q3, and we add to it every quarter, and we're at 96.1% success rate with our clients. So it's absolutely unheard of, but I'm definitely one of those people that's a continual polisher and improver. We're always reviewing client results. We're always consistently throughout the program, after the program, 3, 6, 12 months after somebody graduates, we're reaching out, we're collecting feedback, we're collecting data, we're sitting down, and we're constantly tweaking and polishing and improving as we go along. I never feel like you can be 100% done.
Yeah, that's true. So MindFix is a relatively new business founded in early 2018. I can't believe we're going here past the 2010s. And yet the results you've racked up and the team you've built up, how did you create that? Because it was just you in the beginning. And how did you find your team, and why did you want a team and not go solo?
So I love doing this work. I am passionate. Like the first 4 or so months when it was just me, and I was taking on these beta clients and these test clients going, could this really be an actual business? And I was feeling into it going, is this for real? I was like, it was one of the happiest phases of my life. I went from the severe depression to getting to not only serve people, but then every week I was getting these notes like, you've changed my life. I experienced calm for the first time. I used to be a procrastinator for 30 years and I've just stopped. I used to be scared of being on camera, and now the fear is completely gone, and I'm doing interviews and I'm in the Wall Street Journal, and it was just flooding into my inbox, and it just filled me so much compared to running this agency where if we had done a really good job over 8 months for a large budget and coordinated across 40 people, if we were lucky, we might get a thank you for your service email, right? So it's this sharp contrast. So here I am, and I'm working kind of one-on-one. I'm working directly with clients. As I got busier and busier, suddenly I had a wait list, and suddenly I had people backed out, and I couldn't start working with everyone. And what I noticed is I was so passionate about improving the processes and creating a beautiful experience for the clients. And I was still taking on initial calls, and I was still kind of updating the website. And here I was trying to work with clients every week and then get their notes out and make sure that all of their scheduling was going on, that I was like, if I continue this path, even though I love working with clients, I'm going to be burnt out by the end of the year. This is beautiful and it's magnificent, but it's actually not sustainable. So I just realized, like, this is something that I can grow. This is something that I can build, but I cannot possibly continue to do this by myself. I can either kind of stay at this lovely salary every year and max out and take on so many people, or I can truly turn this into something that's going to get out to the world, because it's too important. It relieves suffering far too effectively for me to kind of keep this and help just a handful of people every year. So what happened is I was able to bring in a couple of other experts in very specific modalities that aren't used a lot. And I found someone who had been trained in one of the types of very specific types of kind of belief work that I do. There's only a handful of people around the world. The person who had actually invented one of my methodologies passed away several years ago. And kind of a lot of his legacy, it was starting to fade away. But I found someone who actually was trained in it and was able to bring her from corporate America and work with me. And then meanwhile, the coolest part, I have a right-hand man and operations person that's been helping me scale the business so effectively it's been 10 months now. And the way that he showed up in my world, I never would have guessed. I was at a conference in Chicago, and he approached me. I had known him. He had been a client from my agency, but his business had actually gone bankrupt, so we never actually worked together. I re-met up with him at a conference in Chicago, and he came up to me and he said, I want to work with you. So I sat down, talked with him, and I looked at him and I said, I don't have the capacity to work with you. You are so negative and so toxic, and you hate people, and you're angry at the world for what happened when you lost your business. And there are so many things that you feel are wrong, and you have so many patterns. I'm like, I don't have the capacity myself to work with you right now. So after the conference, he applied directly for our program, and I sent him a rejection. I said, I'm sorry, we can't accept you into our program. He applied again. Like a month later, I said, no, I'm sorry. And I had been improving my skills so much that when he reached out a third time, a few months later, I said, you know what? I'm going to take you on as a project, and I'm going to see if I can't help you. This is on the side. I'm going to see if I can't level up my skills like 10 levels by working with you. And what happened is we worked together, and in 6 weeks, we had the most incredible breakthrough I've ever seen with any client, where he went from being an angry, toxic person to being this beautiful, loving human who's like, I love people. I want to help people. So what happened is it transformed his life so completely. He flew across the country, showed up at my doorstep and said, I'm going to work for you. I'm going to help you build this business. This is everything. You've changed my life where nothing else could. I'm going to work with you. And I was resistant because I'm like, I don't know if I'm needed. I don't know if I'm ready. He's like, we will create something together. I don't care what it takes. I don't care like if you have to pay me less at the beginning. I'm going to do this. I am so committed to helping you get this out to the world. And so 2 months later, we negotiated an arrangement, an agreement. It was the best decision I think I've ever made in terms of the business. I never could have planned it. Like I didn't do any personality or Colby testing to see if his instincts were right. I didn't do any formal application process. He just showed up. He had been an entrepreneur previously and run a 8-figure business and was so successful. But I had needed to see that change in him. And now we're an incredible team, and he's helping me scale. So
I love that.
yeah.
That is amazing. What held you back in your journey as a high achiever? Why are you working specifically with high achievers? Is it because of you? I mean, high achiever love things to happen fast and painless. Was this client that's also part of your team now also a high achiever? And is this how you ran your media agency for 16 years?
I just want to make sure I answer both questions. So the first question you had asked is what had held me back, right? During my experience as a high achiever. And what I noticed, what I learned after the fact, is I had a lot of old programs running in the background that were holding me back, but I thought they were moving me forward. I had things like, in order to I truly believed, like at a deep fundamental, that in order to be successful, you had to work hard. You had to work long hours. In order to be successful, you had to work yourself into exhaustion. That in order to deserve a really great salary or amount of money that you'd bring in every year, you needed to earn it and deserve it and prove it. I had all sorts of old programs that I was just clinging on to, that in order to be a worthwhile, important person in the world, I had to achieve. That if I wasn't achieving and doing incredible things, I had no worth as a person. So you can imagine when I went through my pain period and I wasn't able to achieve a lot, my whole sense of self and who I am completely plummeted. And I felt completely worthless. I felt horrible about myself. And because I couldn't really work hard during that time, and I was going to see all these doctors, I started having these judgments about myself that I was lazy and that I was a worthwhile, lazy person because I wasn't working hard. So these are all programs that started to kind of bubble up to the surface, that where my worth was tied to all of these external things like achievements and not being lazy and requiring that I had to work hard. So it was never a possibility. I couldn't even imagine running a business where I was at ease and I was able to relax and perhaps I could cut back hours. I didn't even think that I could create something like that. So I had built myself into this structure where I was going to have to work hard, constantly achieve, constantly be better than others, and just feel like I was constantly having to earn and deserve my income forever. And it was a horrible, horrible loop. And it really held me back and kept me, when I would think about possibilities or how I'm going to grow the business, relieving myself from this torment was never an option. So those were some of the things that I realized had been holding me back and that kept me making decisions that were just crushing me and keeping me in these loops of workaholism and deep inner criticism and not letting myself off the hook, all the time beating myself up. It was no way to live. Like on the outside, things look great. On the inside, if you kind of like popped me open, you would see this criticism and constant frustration, this fear of not being enough, this push and drive to achieve more. And when you're moving forward and trying to be an entrepreneur and building a business, you can't always tell from the outside, but it's a horrible thing when you're being motivated by a sharp stick and you're moving forward and doing things out of fear and terror and worry that you're not enough versus being able to clear those things out and having the motivation that pulls you forward out of love and excitement and passion. And I definitely didn't have that. So I think all of that kind of head trash and outdated old programs and ways of thinking that I had picked up when I was younger, that's what was actually holding me back. And then you had asked a question about why we work specifically with high achievers and entrepreneurs, right?
Yep.
So at the beginning, when I started working with anybody, what I found is there was a very clear and specific subset of people who not only saw results more quickly, they were more engaged, they appreciated the process, and once they were done, the results they experienced were exponentially higher and more profound than everyone else. When I worked with kind of people who weren't high achievers and entrepreneurs, I found a much higher percentage of people who had more victim mindsets. So they would show up and it would be kind of like a stereotypical employee mindset where this is wrong. The world is unfair. Things happen to me. It's just not just. Things happen to me. Can you fix it? Can you fix me? And there was often a lack of personal responsibility. There was an external locus of control instead of someone showing up going, I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my decisions. And when people show up and have this, everything sucks, I just can't, there's not much I can do. It's really hard to and create transformation with a person like that. When someone shows up and goes, look, I've read the books, I've done the coaching, I've had mentors, I've tried, I'm ready, I'm here, I'm going to do what it takes. I understand that I own where I'm at and I take personal responsibility. Anything is possible. And transformation can happen so quickly. But when somebody is resistant and they're like, help me, fix me, go, which is honestly kind of what I was doing with my physical body when I was going through my pain period, it's really hard to actually make progress.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey you've gone through, hey? She's very exciting. As high achievers, we're also emotionally and intelligent and active. And we direct our emotions more than our logic, or we direct it with our emotions more than our logic. What tips can you give high achievers listening today to implement in directing their emotions to a profitable and emotionally stable result?
So interestingly, I would say I see that many high achievers and entrepreneurs definitely have strong emotions and use their emotions to direct them forward. But I've also seen just as many who have old programs that it's not safe to feel emotions and that it's not okay to actually access or even express emotions. It tends to be more with men than women, where you ask them how they're feeling and it's just they're completely disconnected and disassociated. So I've seen people on both ends of the spectrum. But there are quite a few tools that people can use to prevent their emotions from kind of taking over and sabotaging their day. So sometimes we get super anxious, we'll get an email and we get triggered, we get really worried, perhaps a client won't call us back, and we start to go into these loops about what is this going to mean? And then our cortisol levels rise and we actually go into this kind of unproductive state. So there are plenty of tools out there that a lot of people know that you can use to kind of dissolve emotion in the moment. So for example, there's a float away hack that can take less than 2 minutes that anybody can use to dissolve any unwanted emotions as they arrive during their day. And the way that this works is you can experience an emotion and you name it. You go, okay, now I'm having anxiety. And what you do is you sit quietly, you close your eyes, you take some deep breaths, and you imagine that you're floating up out of your body and you're looking down at yourself sitting in a chair. So this allows you to become the observer of yourself, which is something that people who meditate know is quite effective. And you can take the step further by then imagining you're floating out of that body, floating up into another body. So you're looking down at a body outside of you that's looking down at you sitting in a chair. And this act takes your mind away from creating whatever stories you're running in your head. That allows your mind to stop pumping out the neurochemicals that are increasing the stress and resistance in your body. If you can do this for 90 seconds to 2 minutes, the chemicals will stop pumping out and your emotion will actually dissolve as the chemicals wear out. So there are little tools like that that you can use to dissolve unwanted emotions during your day. The thing is, the events that end up triggering you as you go throughout your day, you probably have patterns with them. So it might be when somebody criticizes you. It might be when you get bad news or you don't win a project. It might be when team members come to you with issues and you have to have a difficult conversation or start to address conflict. There's tons of people who have massive conflict avoidance. So what you want to do to truly make it so that you don't even have these unwanted emotions during the day, you need to determine what your patterns are. When is it that you have these unwanted emotions? Because they're not random throughout the day. Everybody gets triggered by certain things. So when you can determine what your pattern is and say, I feel anxious when my team members ask me for feedback about their performance and I have to tell them something that might make them upset. You can come up with these, get really clear on what triggers you. And so what happens is, instead of having to do all these meditation and hacks to eliminate and clear out your emotions, the powerful thing and what we do with our clients is we sit there and we go, okay, that pattern that you're experiencing, the thoughts and the emotions that are causing you to continue to, say, avoid conflict, they're there for a reason. What you believe to be true is determining those thoughts and determining your emotions and causing you to act in these loops. So if you have beliefs that if I upset someone, they'll reject me. If I say something negative, I'll hurt someone's feelings and I'll be a bad person. If you believe those things, that's going to determine the thoughts that show up when someone asks for feedback. That's going to increase your emotions of anxiety and fear. And it's ultimately going to keep you in loops of behaving the same way where you go, you know what, I'm going to procrastinate over here and go on Facebook instead of having that difficult conversation. When you can go in and pull out those beliefs and literally eliminate them the way that a child eliminates the belief in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny in one day, and you can pull those out, your thoughts instantly change, your emotions instantly change, and then your actions instantly change. And you can literally become a person who finds it easy to have difficult conversations in a day. It's not something you ever have to practice or work on. When you change the beliefs and the thoughts that are causing all of these emotions and action patterns, everything changes down the way, and it's quite easy.
Yeah. I love that. And it is easy when you make the choice to do that and not stay in the victim mode. So I love this. This is awesome. And it's just so needed because there are a lot of high achievers in the world. There are a lot of visionaries in the world with a lot of big ideas who feel stuck logically. And it's just recognizing those patterns and going, oh, all right, okay. So just switching it, then it's like, oh, all right, that's a big relief. It's not just, you'll have one thing eliminated, but there'll always be more things. but just it goes quicker once you get into the habit of eliminating them.
Mm-hmm. And my goal one day is to be able to help people eliminate the beliefs themselves, but I still can't even do it by myself. I still need my team to help me with it. What people can do is get clear on the patterns they're experiencing. Instead of saying, I get upset throughout the day, they can actually, if they start to pay attention and bring awareness to their emotions, they can start to track and very quickly go, oh, I have this emotion when this happens. And that's kind of step one of uncovering what's going on. Step two is asking this, I call it like my $1 million question. And it's asking the question, what would I have to believe to be true in order to keep experiencing this over and over again? So let's say someone experiences a pattern of having the compulsion of needing to spell check their emails and social media posts like 4 times. And it takes tons of hours lots of hours every week to get stuck in this perfectionist cycle. If someone goes, okay, every time I have to put something in writing, I have anxiety and I have to check it 100 times before I can send it out. That's a pattern. If they ask, what would I have to believe to be true in order to keep acting this way? They might discover that they have beliefs around what makes me worthwhile is being perfect, or in order to be a successful person and keep clients, I must be perfect. And they'll discover that they have kind of these programs or these invisible rules that are running in the background that, okay, yes, I have it. It makes sense why I'm acting this way. And really, once you are clear on what those beliefs are, there are processes that allow you to pull and extract those out and eliminate them, which will then clear out the pattern instantly.
I love that. Whew. I love hearing all of this because it's a lot of work that I've gone through myself. And for the listeners who haven't gone through this, this is a lot of information to take in. You'll find in the show notes, obviously, information about Erin. It's at mindfixgroup.com, where you can find out information and get in contact, especially if this is getting you to think about things that are, oh, yeah, this has been holding me back. To break that, to eliminate, to go, you don't have to, it's a choice. You can either be stuck in it or not. And closing off, I have 2 questions that I ask all my guests at the end. One of them being to fill in the blanks on 3 of my values and what they mean to you. One of them being passion for you is?
Passion for me is waking up in the morning feeling incredibly excited to start my day and move forward. It's a feeling of energy and excitement that draws me forward like a magnet.
I love that. Creativity for you is?
Creativity for me is simply not feeling boxed in by other people's rules and feeling free to create and explore in any way that inspires me.
I think I'd feel that as well. I like that. Wisdom for you is?
That's a trickier one. I think I'm still learning the boundaries between intelligence and wisdom. I think wisdom is something that I'm only now starting to gain after repeating experiences and making tremendous amounts of mistakes and having the discernment of what stands true over time versus what's something that I thought I had to believe.
Yeah, I love that. And what would you want to change or challenge in the world doing what you do?
That's an easy one for me. I want to challenge the deeply held beliefs that change can't happen quickly and that change must be difficult. I am so passionate about being able to help people with patterns and challenges like perfectionism, procrastination, money issues, fear of failure, fear of success, all these things that people work on, in air quotes, for years or decades. I am so inspired and excited to show the world that these things can be completely gone in a matter of weeks.
Love that. And so needed, especially and it's not a thing of instant gratification, or is it?
It's not a gratification. It's more of it's removing the barriers that create the resistance so that people can experience ease and flow and momentum.
I love that. Erin, thank you so much for crossing paths. I don't know how, but I'm so pleased that you were here with us today, sharing your wisdom and your creativity and passion and how you want to challenge and change the world. I find it extraordinary. I'm very, very pleased that you're honoring that you stumbled into MindFix, and that you building something and methodology and magic formula that's going to influence generations.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And to the listeners, remember to be fast and furious and be the change that you want to be and see in the world. And hook up with Erin on mindfixgroup.com. And in the show notes, you'll find out also information about them, where they are on social media as well, and a special offer that they have for you too. And get in contact with them if you feel as a high achiever that you're stuck and you want to get unstuck. Thank you so much, everyone. Love you lots and see you next week. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Please, 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 please share the podcast and make sure you subscribe, because a bunch of you aren't subscribed. And more importantly, I know that you've listened to this podcast and haven't told your friends, family, and besties and clients that this is the best podcast in the world. I'm watching. Have a great day.